wanted to have a bit of a chat to you about the album, everything that you got going on. And this album's really interesting. There's so much cool stuff about it. There's a lot to talk about. So I guess, first of all, I mean, the album's just come out like a week or two back. How are you feeling after, now that's out there in the wide world and, people can kind of get a hold of it and listen to it, I guess, after all that work and all those,
Yeah, well,
matches that
it's
you
a
went through.
great feeling. It took a long time to get there. Basically, the album came out exactly a year and a half after I started writing the songs for it.
Wow.
Uh, so it's a lot of hard work to get there, and now it's my favorite part of the whole process. I'm touring, I'm playing the songs live, and the reaction's been great. People are really digging the album, and the songs were great live. And
Mm-hmm.
they were made to be played live. So the show's really happening. It's great to be back on the road and to see the fans with new material.
Hmm.
Yeah, the reaction to the new stuff has been great. Most fans write to me telling me that is their favorite album yet.
Hmm.
So because you never know.
Hmm.
I always put everything into my albums, but you never know how the people are going to react to it.
Hmm.
And some of them are hard to do, some of them are easy to do, and the end result has nothing to do with that.
Hmm.
And there's always a timing thing. Sometimes the people are into something different than they're not aligned with what you're into, and so you never know.
Hmm.
And This time around, people seem to we seem to be at the same place. The fans dig the new material, and I hope you know. Obviously, I enjoy playing these songs live, and
Hmm.
it's a great feeling to finally have the album out because I'm an independent artist. It's my
Hmm.
own record label. I
Hmm.
don't have a manager, so it's a lot of fucking work to get there.
Yeah.
It's one thing to write the songs, to perform them, and to record it, but then to put it out, finding the guy who's going to do the album cover, getting the T-shirts done, getting the
Yeah.
CDs done, the promotion. It's a lot of work, and it's not what I enjoy.
No.
I do these things just so I can keep on playing the guitar.
Hmm.
you
Yeah.
know, it's just something that I have to do, and now finally I can concentrate on playing.
Yeah.
So
I hear you on the management. I actually manage a few bands myself, so I feel the pain of the management side of what you do.
yeah.
It's not that easy. It can be very,
No,
very
it's not.
challenging. So I think obviously the interesting thing about this album, I mean, I read, it's not a concept album per se, but it's kind of, when you look at it from the outside, the bigger picture, it's kind of, you didn't
Yeah.
write it like a concept album, but it's kind of become a bit of a concept album.
No, but once the album was done, and I had all these songs in that particular order, it seemed like there's a story
Hmm.
behind it, and you know, ending with when the music's over
Hmm.
really gives it that feeling. I
Hmm.
think
Hmm.
it's very personal and very universal at the same time.
Hmm.
These times we live in, with AI, and the world is really changing
Hmm.
fast.
Hmm.
And as a musician, it can feel like that sort of last of the blacksmith type of
Right.
thing, especially for a guy like me playing everything together. The
Hmm.
album's done straight to tape,
Hmm.
recorded live in the studio. It's not how the world works anymore, and there's all these concerns about AI and what the future holds. We had a big election here a week ago south of the border, and
Hmm.
that changed a lot of things for us Canadians and
Hmm.
for the whole world.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
But at the core of that, there's that light at the end of the tunnel. It's my love for music, and
Hmm.
music will always be there. And there's what's going on in the world right now, but music is eternal, and it's always been there for me, and it always be there. And it's the same thing for everybody.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, you bang on there, and it's really interesting that you're looking at these subjects because these are a lot of the things that you're talking about, are things that in interviews that I've chatted with bands for a while about. AI is such a burning topic at the minute, and as as a creative person myself, you know. A lot of people say like, yeah, AI is going to take people's jobs away and these types of things. People are going to be replaced by AI. But I think there's two sides to the argument because I feel AI can can be beneficial, but as a tool for the artist, it's not to replace an artist, but like,
Well, just like the internet,
mhm,
it can be beneficial,
mhm,
but at the same time, what we most people use the internet to look at photos of cats.
mhm,
You know, so the tool is there,
mhm.
but how will we use it?
Yeah.
That's the thing.
Yeah, you're right because I mean I remember the first conversation I had with this about somebody it was a few years ago and I remember and this guy was like you could effectively now create a new Beatles album even though they haven't been making music for a long time and two of them aren't even here anymore but using AI you could effectively write an album that sounds like the Beatles and put it
Well,
out.
that's why everybody's selling their publishing. These companies are not only buying the songs,
Mhm.
they're buying the right to do new songs with
Right.
AI.
Hmm.
That's what's going on.
Yeah.
So how can you compete with that?
Yeah.
Like with a new Beatles record
Hmm.
or a new Queen record, or
Yeah.
like I don't know. Like I can't wait to see what's going to happen.
Yeah. I
But
mean,
it's hard for me to be like very positive about it,
yeah.
you
Yeah, I
know.
mean, for me, aside from being a writer, I'm also a photographer, and there are some AI tools in photography which are really cool. And
Mhm.
I'm not talking about the ones where you say like you write, you type into a box and say, create an image that looks like, like this piece of art or something. But for photography, there's some clever stuff that saves me time, which is like,
Mhm.
I don't know if
Yeah, yeah,
when you take a picture and sometimes and it's dark and it's noisy, the image is noisy, but there's tools where you can get AI to sort of like reduce the noise, and I
yeah.
that and oh
It'll
there's
be interesting to see how human beings will use it to go forward.
yeah,
Let's put it this way. That would be like the positive side of it.
yeah,
In music, like I don't think the machine can replace the human being,
hmm,
not completely,
hmm,
but like electric guitars are machines, that we
hmm,
use to. I use the electric guitar to make it sing,
hmm,
or to do and I to create something that I have in my head.
hmm,
So I think humans will use it that way.
hmm,
But then there's the dark side of it, where
hmm,
corporations like Spotify
hmm,
have artists on their playlists who are not artists, people
hmm.
that don't exist.
Right,
It's
yeah,
AI.
yeah,
So, and they put that on their playlist so that they have to pay the artists even less,
hmm, yeah,
even though they hardly pay us,
yeah,
and they're taking all the money.
yeah,
So, and they the listening audience, a lot of them have changed to like I used to talk to my brother, like, what are you listening to these days? And he'd tell me that album, that album, that
hmm,
album. Now I'm listening to that playlist, that playlist, that playlist.
hmm,
And that's what's going on.
yeah,
People listen to playlists. And if these corporations infiltrate the playlist with AI so that they don't pay the artists that
yeah,
are hardly getting paid already,
yeah,
that's a huge problem. And
yeah,
these fuckers are
mhm,
so big that the artists can't do anything about it.
yeah,
You know,
you're
it's a real David and Goliath type of thing. And I don't have a rock big enough.
right. No, but you can rock big enough though. You can rock
Oh,
big.
I can do that. I can do that. And I can guarantee you that no fucking machine can rock a one man band like I can do. Like no
Yeah.
machine can play. And, there's always going to be like concerts.
Hmm.
Machines can't do that.
Yeah. No, you're
If
right.
you're into seeing people play, but a lot of kids really dig going to see DJs.
Yeah,
So
yeah, yeah.
eventually you'll have a machine that will replicate what Daft Punk humans dressed as machines
Mm,
were doing.
mhm.
you
Yeah,
know,
I get you. So, I mean, in terms of concept albums, I mean, I understand that you've always been a bit of a fan of concept albums, and likewise, I am too. I mean, when I think of some of my favorite records like that, I always think about Tommy by The Who or like Quadrophenia,
yeah.
stuff like that. And I was fortunate I got a tour of The Who for a while, and I got to hear Quadrophenia every night for weeks on end.
Wow.
Um,
I saw that tour. I saw
yeah, well,
Quadrophenia in 95 or 96, something like that.
right. Yeah, well,
97.
this was the sort of 2013 version of that, and
Okay.
I was working with a band called Vintage Trouble, and they
Oh,
were
yeah.
they were the support, so.
Okay.
I
Okay.
ran around arenas with them for quite a long time. We went out to the States and we did like Madison Square Garden and stuff like that, which was insane. So that was a lot of fun. But I mean, yeah, I mean, just tell us a little bit about, what it is about those type of albums that appeals to you. What maybe some of your favorite.
Well, the I like the album
Mhm,
as a, like I'm 50,
mhm,
so I grew up on albums.
mhm,
And I think the album is something that's still relevant, well, to me,
mhm,
as an art form in
mhm,
itself,
mhm.
like Who's Next? You're talking about the Who's
Yeah,
Next
yeah.
is an aborted concept album. It was
Mhm,
supposed to be Lighthouse.
mhm,
And it sort of fits together, but there's no real story. But it's an album. It's got
mhm,
a sound to it. It's got a vibe to it.
mhm,
Uh, Are You Experienced is not a concept album, but it's an
mhm,
album and it all fits together. You
mhm,
put it on and you have that experience.
mhm,
It's not just one song. It's not just a collection of different songs. It it's got like Axe as Bold as Love is not a
mhm,
concept album, but it
mhm,
fits together.
mhm,
You know what I mean? So that's what I'm looking for,
mhm,
and that's what I'm trying to do every time I do an album.
mhm,
They're not necessarily concept albums, but I like to have a story within the song, and I like to have sort of a story as on the album as a whole.
mhm,
I'm still a firm believer in that, and that's how I still consume music. I put albums on.
mhm,
I got this transition sound system in my minivan.
mhm.
Where it's got a hard drive in it, where you load in a CD and
Mhm.
you download the album.
Right.
So I still listen, and I can't play my phone on it.
Mhm.
There's something fucked up with it, and
Mhm.
I won't get it repaired. It
Yeah,
works fine for me. I listen to albums,
yeah,
but that's not how people consume music anymore.
no, yeah, but I think it also comes from a different place because I remember, I'm 45, so I'm not too far from you in age wise, and I remember, like as a kid, like the most exciting thing for me was like, you know, you got a pack of blank cassettes, you know, and then I would go and I'd find my friends like, what albums have you got? And we would tape
Yeah,
them,
yeah,
copy them, and
yeah.
swap them. It was exciting, get a pack of C60 or C90 cassettes, and I would, and so with those days, you had to sit and press play and listen to it from start to finish. There was no, we can just skip this. Well, you could fast forward or rewind.
No, you'd listen
It
to
was a
the
lot.
whole
You would
thing.
listen to the whole thing from start to finish, or you put on an album, you put like a vinyl on, and you would listen to from start to finish. Whereas now, I talk to my nieces, and they're all, they were only in their teenage years, and I'm like, "What are you listening to?" We don't know. We just listen to songs. That's what they say. They can never tell me who
Exactly.
they've been listening to. We
I
just
know.
listen to
I
songs.
know.
I'm like,
I know. It's
crazy.
like the corporations changed it so that they would have all the power and the artist would have no power.
Yeah,
So people are listening to songs that they hear on playlists.
yeah,
They don't even know who makes the songs.
yeah,
They don't care.
yeah.
It's up to the point where they couldn't care.
Yeah. I mean, obviously the writing on this album, like you said, I mean the themes are universal, but they're also very personal. I mean, do you enjoy writing from a personal place? Is that, do you prefer to write about your own experiences?
Yeah, yeah. I've always written more about it's easier for me to write about something that I can relate to,
Hmm.
like that. And if it's something that I've experienced, it just it sounds more natural. It comes more naturally But then I like songs to have a few different levels, so it's not just about me. And the beauty about music is that somebody can listen to it and think that the song is about a completely different subject than what I wrote it about,
Hmm.
and that's fine.
Hmm.
That's how it should be, you know.
Hmm.
Uh, uh, but there's a few songs in there where they're like more personal, like
Hmm.
Show Ya, and that comes from I write songs with Johnny Pilgrim,
Hmm.
and this one was his idea. I wanted to go somewhere else with it, and he made it about myself
Hmm.
in a way that I wouldn't have gone there
Hmm.
because it's too personal. It's really
Hmm.
my life story there.
Right.
I heard rock and roll as a kid, and I was fascinated by it, and I play air guitar. I play on a tennis racket, on a
Hmm.
hockey stick,
Hmm.
and then eventually I met some friends, and one of them had an electric guitar, and the other one had a drum kit. I
Hmm.
didn't even know that in my town there were electric guitars. I
Hmm.
thought that it's something that they had in the big cities. I didn't, like and then I started playing, and when I was 13, and then at 16 I was playing clubs.
Hmm.
And by the time I was 18, I was a professional musician, moved to Montreal,
Hmm.
and I've been doing that ever since. And
Hmm.
in the story, the guy gets screwed by a record label, and I've gotten screwed many times, man. Like lately, I've gotten screwed again. It always happens in the music business.
Yeah.
I signed
Ah.
a deal with a label in the UK in 2018. I'm not going to mention the label, but
Hmm.
uh, I worked really hard to get there. And then 6 months later, they announced Brexit, and I was dropped from the label.
Right. Yeah.
Thousands and thousands and thousands and tens of thousands of dollars invested. And just because of that, I get dropped. I never got paid. I never got any settlements. I never got anything.
Yeah.
That's how the music business works. You get screwed.
Yeah.
So I got screwed many times. And in the song, the last verse is the guy's touring in a beat up car, and he plays a dive, he plays a wedding, a wake. I
Hmm.
don't play weddings or wakes, but he, at the same time, he's the guy in the song says, but don't get me wrong, I'm still happy doing this, like
Hmm.
that's what I love to do. I love
Hmm.
playing music for the people,
Hmm.
and that has never changed,
Hmm.
and it won't. And I'm fortunate enough to have an audience, at least
Hmm.
here in Canada, where I can make a living and tour most of the year, and I play to sold out audiences here, and
Yeah.
that's it's not everybody who's passionate about music who can make a living out of it in
Hmm.
2024,
Yeah.
and I still can, and hopefully it keeps going like this, because I don't know what else to do. I've never done anything else.
That's it.
I was a newspaper boy from 9 to 15. And then at 16, I was playing clubs, and I never learned how to do anything else.
Yeah.
And everything else outside of playing the guitar, like, taking care of the record label and all that shit, I did all of that
Hmm.
so that I could keep playing the guitar,
Hmm.
which is I'm still in love with that. I
Hmm.
still love playing the guitar, man, and
Hmm.
playing for the people and seeing the reaction of the
Hmm.
people. Seeing them
Yeah.
smile, dance, and it's the best feeling I've ever gotten. And I
Yeah.
just want to. I'm hooked to that.
Yeah. I think it must have been about 2018 when I last saw you actually. You were supporting Beth Hart. I think I saw you play in Leeds.
Yeah, yeah, I remember that gig. I was on tour with Wishbone Ash, and then they asked me to open for Beth Hart, but they wanted an acoustic show instead of the
Mhm.
one man band
Yeah.
because she was playing acoustic. So I didn't have all the equipment that I usually have, and I just had to do the acoustic thing. But it was a great hall,
Hmm.
big, 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 big hall. Yeah, I
Yeah.
remember that one.
Yeah, that was cool. Yeah, I was trying to remember him. You know, I do so many shows like yourself, I probably cover nearly 200 shows a year, just going out and doing stuff. So
Well,
it all just blends into one, and especially after with the pandemic and everything, it's even worse. But yeah, I was trying to remember when it was, but it must have been about that time. Um,
yeah, 2017, 2018, yeah, around that
yeah,
2017, I'd say.
yeah. But I guess also what's really interesting about this album is you recorded it in LA. It's at Studio 606, which it's one of those places where it's well famous now, and obviously with the Foo Fighters connection and also that legendary console which is in there as well, which is
Yeah.
pretty much every iconic album in history was recorded on that console. I mean, what was it like going to LA and recording the album there?
Oh, it was great, man. And it was just like it's something that came about because in the past, I like 7 or 8 years ago, I was hired by a company called Lowton Audio, a
Hmm.
microphone company. They were at the time they were distributed by a Montreal company,
Hmm.
and they were looking for an artist to do demos at the NAMM show in LA and at Sweetwater in Indiana, and the distributor from Montreal, one of the guys who worked there, saw a video of myself. I think it was Dangerous, and he sent it to Brian, and Brian was like, "Oh yeah, we want this guy." And I was not the star of those events. The
Hmm.
star was Daryl Thorpe,
All right,
who
okay.
who's the engineer, mixer, and producer of my record.
Hmm.
Daryl does the Foo Fighters albums.
Right.
He's done Beck, he's done Radiohead, he's done
Right.
McCartney. He worked with Nigel Goodrich a lot, and he's got 10 Grammys. He's worked with
Wow.
Snoop Dogg and Reba McEntire. He does
Hmm.
he does any type of music. He's like
Hmm.
an incredible engineer,
Hmm.
and we do these events where I'd be in a cubicle, basically in a box, and he was on stage explaining how he mics, and I had cameras on me, but he
Hmm.
was the star of the event, and they were like to people of the industry
Hmm.
about the microphones and about mic placement,
Hmm.
and they liked me because it was just one guy and it's a band, so I was perfect for those
Hmm.
events, and we got along really well. And since then, Brian once in a while would get in touch with me and tell me, "Hey man, you should come and record in LA." And for me, like I got a home studio. We're in my studio right now.
Yeah. Wow. That's
So so and to go to LA, and do an album, it's a lot of money, and
mhm,
I pay for the albums myself,
mhm,
so it didn't seem like that easy to do or that possible. And what happened is almost 2 years ago, I was on tour in Western Canada,
mhm,
and I played Calgary, and somebody filmed me, and I posted it back on Facebook. And Brian was at Studio 606 with Daryl, and he
mhm,
sees the video, and he's like, he calls me, and he's like, "Hey, Steve, been a while. Yeah, you
mhm,
should really come and record in LA. You should come
mhm,
and record at 606." I'm like, "Yeah, Brian, that'd be awesome."
mhm, mhm.
And then about a week or a week and a half later, it's the end of the tour, and I'm sleeping at my tour manager's place because I'm leaving the very next day, and we got to Calgary late. We were in Red Deer doing a show, and then we got there late, and I'm sleeping on an inflatable. How do you say that?
Inflatable.
Inflatable mat downstairs, and it's like it's really not comfortable, and I can't sleep. I spent the whole night, like between being awake and sleeping. And at some point, I'm dreaming of barbecue, and it smells like barbecue, and I'm like, "Oh man, all right, Nate's cooking barbecue, it's great." And then I open my eyes, and it's the basement is filled with smoke.
Oh my God.
The house is on fire.
Uh,
So I get up, I wake Nate, we get out of there, call the fireman, and then I somebody else was picking me up to bring me to the airport, and I do it every time. Every time I finish a tour, I'm sitting in my seat in the plane, and I take a photo, and
Yeah.
post a little text, and I it started with woke up in a house on fire, and then like did 10 shows in 10 days, and I'm finally going home, and then when I landed in Montreal, I opened my phone, and Brian had written to me, and he's like, "What the fuck, man? What's going on?" And
Mhm.
I called him back, and he's like, "Hey, man, that's a good line for a song." And I'm like, "Yeah, I agree." And then a week later, he had arranged the whole thing.
Mhm.
He had booked the studio, booked Daryl, and decided to be the producer of the album. He
Mhm.
paid for the recording,
Wow.
and they filmed the whole thing. There might be a documentary eventually. It was like
Mhm.
all filmed, and so then I had 3 months to write an album and learn how to perform it live
Mhm.
because I don't do overdubs.
Mhm.
So it was a lot of fucking hard work to get
Mhm.
there, but having the deadline
Yeah.
really really helped. Because
Yeah,
sometimes that's what you need as an artist or
definitely.
anything to get shit done.
Yeah.
You need a deadline.
Yeah, that's it.
And so I went there last week of August, and my buddy Johnny Pilgrim, who I mentioned earlier, who I write lyrics with, he lives in LA, comes to
Mhm.
pick me up and my girlfriend at the airport. And 15 minutes later, we got hit at a stop sign. Somebody ran on a red light straight into us. I got broken ribs, and I was in the studio like 36 hours later.
Mhm.
So I did a few days, but it was getting worse and worse, man. Every day something else was stuck, and
Mhm.
so the producers decided to postpone the whole thing.
Mhm.
And then uh, it took 3 months for me to heal.
Mhm.
Actually, a year, but after 3 months, I was okay.
Mhm.
I got some cortisone shots, and I was fine to perform, and it gave me more time to get ready to record. And
Mhm.
I had this drive, man, that I could not fuck up.
Mhm.
The first time I went there, I saw it as like my break. If I have one break in my life, it's this one.
Mhm.
And everything depended on it.
Mhm.
And because of a fucking stupid accident, I couldn't do it. So there was no way that I would mess it up the second time.
Yeah.
So I got in there and I was so focused. I've never been that focused in my entire life.
Mhm.
And I had 6 days to record the album, and I did it in five.
Wow.
We do 2 songs a day,
Mhm.
and it's all first, second, or third takes.
Mhm.
And yeah, I'm very proud of it. It it it's a huge amount of work for these. There's 8 songs on the album. Of course, when you do an album, you write more stuff
Yeah.
than what you have on the album, and but these 8 together were just on a vinyl. You can't really go over 40, 41 minutes, like, so
Right.
they were fine for the LP, and they fit together. I
Mhm.
had another song which was really good, which will come out later, but it just didn't fit.
Mhm.
And these 8 songs together felt like a concept album at the same
Mhm.
time, and
Mhm.
it they were meant to be together.
Mhm. That's so cool. Yeah, I mean, it's like you said, you went from focusing on a big break to actually having like a broken bones. It's kind of like there's something in that as well, I think. That's a that's a little story in itself, really. But I think also like you said, I mean, I think it's cool that you got the music's over on there as well, and it does seem to tie it up nicely. And obviously the LA connection with the Doors as well is really cool.
Yeah, and that was an idea from Brian Laudenschlager. His name is Brian Laudenschlager, the guy from Loudon Audio.
Mhm.
And he listened to Solo Recordings Volume 1, an older album of mine, and there's a song that sort of reminded him of Morrison, I guess, in the way that
Mhm.
I sang it. And he asked me to do that, and I was like, "Really?" And it took me a few weeks, to try it, and once I figured out the tuning, because I use open tuning sometimes
Mhm.
or drop D or whatever, and once I figured out the right tuning to play the riff, then I listened to the track a few times and came to my studio and I did 2 takes. I sang on it. I sent it to Brian, and he was like, "Wow, man!" He was blown away by it, and I was really surprised by the result, also.
Mhm. Mhm.
And when we recorded it, I did two takes in the studio, and one of the filming crew, one of the guys was like, "You must have played that song a lot, man." And I'm like, "No, man, this is actually the fourth time I've played it." But like I've been a fan of the Doors since I was 15, and
Mhm.
so I just instinctly knew the song,
Yeah.
and it's nothing like the original, but
Mhm.
it's like an accident that it just felt natural, and it just came really quickly, like it was like I was meant to play that song.
Yeah. I actually interviewed Robbie Krieger about a year ago. He brought out like a jazz blues type album. I don't know if you heard it. It was like an instrumental
No.
jazz thing. Came out back in the last year, but yeah, that was surreal for me. Like you, I've been a fan of the Doors since I was a kid, and I never in a million years did I ever get to think I get to speak to one of them, and it was
Hmm.
so surreal because he's very old now. He's well
Yeah,
into his late 70s, and but it was surreal hearing him talking, and the most interesting thing he told me was about Light My Fire, um because he sort of told me like how that song happened and how it came about, and what he said was, it was kind of when the Doors were doing their residency at the Whiskey and they needed more songs, and Jim had been writing most of the songs at that point, and he sort of said to the rest of the band, like, don't be afraid for you guys to write some lyrics. And Robbie had said to him, like, well, what do you want me to write about? And he just said, well, write about something universal. He said, well, what's universal? And he said, well, earth, air, wind, and fire. So he took fire and he wrote Light My Fire, and that's where it came from. I was just
wow.
like, that's like mind, it totally blew my mind. Like the simplicity of like one of the greatest songs of all time, how it came about. I was like, whoa. But it was really funny because he obviously the guy's getting on now and Zoom and stuff like that, it's not of his time. So he was sat there with his phone, and but he was trying to talk to me like it was on the phone. So he was on the screen, but he kept on just bringing up the foot. So all
Okay.
I kept on seeing was like Robbie Krieger's nose pressed up against the screen for about 30 minutes. He just kept on bringing it back, and we put it back down now. Just he bring it up to his nose again. So yeah, it's really funny, but like lovely, lovely guy and just absolute legend. So yeah, that's probably one of my favorite interviews I've ever done, Robbie Krieger. Um, I guess the last question I've got for you, really, Steve, is just aside from the album coming out, like you said, you've been touring and stuff. Do you know what next year is going to look like? Do you have plans heading into the new year?
Yeah, I'm touring Canada until May.
Hmm.
And actually, there might be, I think there's some shows in France in late April.
Hmm.
And then I have more shows in Canada in the fall. And in between that, we're waiting to see what's happening. There's going to be festival offers across Canada, but there's like something in the States.
Hmm.
Hopefully, more shows in Europe. Hopefully, a tour in the UK.
Hmm.
Trying to see what we can do about it.
Hmm.
I don't have an agent in the UK right now,
Hmm.
but Pete Noble's been talking to some people, and
Yeah.
I'm trying to find a promoter.
Hmm.
I'm trying to get some. I'd really love to tour the UK again because
Hmm.
I really loved it. There's so many places to play. You don't have to drive between 8 hours between each town, and
Yeah.
I'd really love to come back in the UK and play there. If that and tour and finally have like a real tour in the States.
Hmm.
Hopefully that happens in 2025.
Yeah. It's so funny, like you should say about the driving, like our mentality's so different. It's like even if I'm driving like 90 minutes to like Leeds or somewhere, I'm thinking about booking a hotel for the night. Like I'm gonna stay.
Yeah, yeah.
Like even a short drive is like, oh, that we've driven a long way. We're gonna, but for you guys, it's like, you just, it doesn't seem like that much. I guess for you, I mean, in Canada, I mean, the cities are even more kind of spaced out, I guess. Um,
Yeah, well, I mostly play, like in Canada, what happens is that it's so big that most people stick to like the province where they live, and once or twice out of the year
mhm,
go somewhere else, like
mhm,
like I'm going to Western Canada in March,
mhm,
and I'll do Saskatchewan, Alberta, and British Columbia.
mhm,
Uh I used to tour, like I used to leave Montreal and go all the way to the West Coast, you know.
Mhm.
But that's a fucking nightmare because
Mhm.
you got to go through Northern Ontario,
Mhm.
and it's like it's 30 like 32 hours of driving to get to Winnipeg, and there's like one or two towns that you can play between those two, you
Yeah.
know, between Montreal or Ottawa and Winnipeg. You got a few towns, but not much, you know, and so it's a lot of driving. And now I got a different setup, you know,
Mhm.
I'll I played Ottawa last week. I'll do Ontario dates mixed with Quebec dates,
Mhm.
and I have a tour manager in
Mhm.
Calgary, and
Mhm.
I have a drum kit there. I have amps,
Mhm.
merch, you know, so I just have to fly there by myself,
Right. Yeah.
and I have the whole setup there, you know, and I do the West Coast and then I fly back home, you know. It makes more sense like that. I
Yeah.
also have that in the south of France.
Oh, cool.
Uh, but since COVID, I haven't toured Europe as
Mhm.
much as I would love to, and it's been a long process. So hopefully, it looks like 25 is going to be it looks like there's going to be one or two tours of Europe, and hopefully the UK will be in there in 2025.